Now it's doing a thing, but it's not so great looking. Let's take this opportunity to make it just a hair better looking. We're going to use something called Foundation. Has anyone used Foundation before? Has anybody used Bootstrap? Foundation's kind of like Bootstrap. What's Bootstrap? Tell me all about it. My knees. It is a front-end framework that supplies us with some pre-written CSS. So if we just structure our HTML in such a way to match their CSS rules, we get their pretty little designs for free. Foundation is very much the same. Foundation.zerb.com. Now, we're not going to go to the trouble of actually downloading Foundation right this minute. We're going to use a CDN. Anyone know what a CDN is? Say that one more time. Yeah, they host it for us. It's a content delivery network. They're very fast, redundant, etc. And a lot of really popular libraries are hosted on CDNs, so we don't necessarily have to maintain our own copy. One nice side effect of that is if someone has already downloaded that library from that CDN previously on another site, they don't have to re-download it at all. They'll just reuse the same cached copy. So we'll do that. I'm going to use a CDN called CDNJS, cdnjs.com. I will search for Foundation, and I'm going to copy and paste the URL once we find it. Search for Foundation. We see all kinds of stuff here. Let's just click Foundation here. It looks like it's not the CSS I want necessarily. I mean, it's not the JS. All right, here we go. Foundation, version 6.3.1. Sure, why not? And we see there are a whole bunch of files there. I'm really getting angry that I can't resize this split. I can't remember why it does this. Let's see, foundation.min.css. That'll do. I'm going to copy that. And I'll go ahead and paste that URL in Slack. What's that .min business about? Anybody know? Why .min.css? Andrew? Yeah, so it loads faster. So what does it even mean? Yeah, it's minified. So it's been processed to take up as little space as possible without losing any functionality. So all variable names, class names, etc., have been made as small as they can possibly be automatically by something that does the minification for us. So it's no longer really human readable. It gets rid of all unnecessary white space. So everything's smashed together probably on a single line. Not easy to read, but very fast to load. And we don't really need to read the CSS for Foundation. So that will do just fine for us. So inside the head of our document, we're going to put a link element, L-I-N-K. And it'll automatically put that rel attribute style sheet. href equals, and just paste in that URL for Foundation. I'm such a nice guy. I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole line for you, should you want it. If we refresh the page, hey, it looks different. Something must have happened. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yep. Just put yours after Foundation. That way you can be sure that it's overriding the rules, all else being equal. So I don't love the way this looks right off the bat. It could use some padding around the whole thing. So let's add our own CSS. So underneath that one, let's add another link. href of, we can just call it index.css, same name as our HTML file and our JavaScript file. So let's make that an actual file. Create index.css. And I said we wanted to put some padding around everything. So how about the body itself? Everything's a descendant of the body inside the DOM. So, body, perfectly valid CSS selector. Same selector syntax as query selector. And then a CSS rule is marked by curly braces. And then we'll have a bunch of properties and values. Or right now, just one. Property is padding. And then we need some value. I'm going to put one rim. Rim is a unit that is basically relative to the base font size. Instead of using a number of pixels, I happen to know it's going to be 16 pixels. But should someone's font settings be set differently by default, I want to honor that and make everything relative to that. So if they like to make things huge, I'll make things huge. Yes?
Is REM like specifically for padding? Because I know M is for
So M, there it's related. Whereas M kind of depends on the current font size and can change throughout the page. Rim is the same no matter where you use it inside the page. So like it'll be 16 pixels no matter what element I apply that to. It'll be the base font size for the entire document. Yep. So if you had an H1 and you set it to 1.2 M without the R, then that might just make it 120% of what it was already. It's not quite that simple, but yeah, it's not quite that simple, but basically, yeah. So let's see what that does. Refresh the page. There we go. We got some padding. Much better. I feel so much better about my life. It does depend. I use rims probably more than any other unit. There are times when percents make a lot of sense. If it's really like, I mean, you can't say a third of the width with a rim, right? You have to use percents, or you have to use VW or something like that. Yep. So basically, I use rims where I might otherwise use pixels, with the occasional exception. So let's do just a tiny bit more styling. Let's say that we want, what do we have in here? Inside our section, we've got two divs. The one with the form and the one with the details. I have to figure out what I was thinking when I wrote this style sheet, because I don't remember. Well, let's just go with it. It gives us an opportunity to talk about some of this stuff. All right, so if I want to match divs that are children of the section. So if I had a div outside of section, I don't want this rule to apply to it. Just so happens we don't have anything like that. So this means a div that is a descendant of section. Descendant is marked by a space inside the selector. If I put a greater than sign in between the two, that means a child. Difference between child and descendant. There could be things between the parent and the descendant. So there could be another div in between, or anything else in between. Whereas the greater than sign means direct child. So if there are any levels in between, it will not match that div. So what I'm going to do here is set the width to 80%. And I will give it a margin of one rim auto. Now what on earth does that mean? So padding here is actually shorthand for padding top, 1 rem, padding right, 1 rem, padding bottom, 1 rem, and padding left, 1 rem, all in one nice rule. Now if I wanted them all to be different, 2, 3, 4, I can still use the shorthand, and I just put them in that order. So remember, in the shorthand, it goes top, right, bottom, left, in that order. Start at the top, go clockwise. Same thing. Now it just so happens that if the top and bottom should be the same as each other, and the left and the right should be the same as each other, that you can shorten this a little. So let's say the top and the bottom should both be 1. I could say, well, let's it's a little easier if we do it the other way around. Let's say padding left and right should both be 4. Now I could say 1 rem, 4 rem, 3 rem. Since the left is the same as the right, I don't need to specify it. When you use the shorthand, the left will be the same as the right unless you specify otherwise. If I wanted it to be 0, I would have to say 0. Now if top and bottom and left and right should be the same as each other, now this would be the equivalent of this. Top and bottom are the same as each other, left and right are the same as each other. So that's what I've done here. I'm giving the divs a top and bottom margin of 1 rem, about 16 pixels, and left and right of auto. And what that's going to do for me is center it. If you have a left and right margin of auto on a block level element, it should center that thing within its container. Let's see if it's all true. There we go. So now it's not taking up the whole darn thing except for the padding. Just 80% of it right in the middle. Lovely. And that should apply to details as well, right? Because they're both divs that are children of section. So let's say read, go, read. All right. Life is good. Let's add just a couple of other things for fun that we don't necessarily need to type out manually. I will paste all this in. I'll talk about some of it. All right, so put a little top margin on the form. DLs, let's not even worry about those yet. They're there for when you do your homework. Oh no, we might not. It might not be your homework. We'll see. We might do it in class. Ooh, this is neat. Nth of type. We'll talk about things like this with these colons later. Oh man, we got responsiveness going on. Whew. A little beyond where we are right now. So just look, admire. Refresh. Okay, let's add some stuff here. Remind me. You know the Brandon, what's your name? Yeah. Connor, yeah. Yay. So since I can't resize this thing, it's a little hard to check this out, but I can make things smaller. So eventually, depending on the size of my window, the details goes on the right. That's one of the changes we have here. But we're going to stay zoomed in because that's hard to read. So we added some styles. No big whoop. Add foundation and CSS.